You got a friend in me.
You've got a friend in me.
Celebrate friendship and beyond during the first ever Pixar Fest with the all-new Pixar-themed fireworks spectacular and your favorite park parades. Celebrate from April 13th through September 3rd, only at Disneyland Resort. Visit Disneyland.com for details.
There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you.
You got a friend in me.
Entertainment subject to change without notice.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forest that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, ghosts, cover-ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are discussing Bigfoot and other cryptids. Tonight on our panel we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, R. Keith Andrews, astrologist and alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, special guest Larry Anderson, Forest Moon Paranormal's Bigfoot specialist, been in it 30 years. Also myself, Corey Reese, and your host, Forest Moon Paranormal's own, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, how you doing, Concrete, and, well, the global paranormal world, but we are headquartered in Concrete, so I can say that. And we have Concrete, listeners tonight, I think. And, of course, they always hear us on KSVU on Saturday nights from 10 to midnight. But, you know, it's just, my mind's boggled anyway, because, we just had a UFO report here about 45 to minutes to an hour ago here in Concrete. And I went Bigfoot hunting for, well, the first actual time I've gone Bigfoot-specific hunting ever. So it was kind of cool. It was very much cool, which is why I'm excited we have Larry on tonight because, yeah, he's the resident specialist and been doing this for 30 years. The farmer's market was closed to us anyway this weekend because of the rain, and we'll be back on track with the Forest Moon booth at the farmer's market next weekend. Wednesday, we'll be at the Mortar and Pestle Apothecary in downtown Mount Vernon for a paranormal day, and looking forward to that. Anyway, I know we have we're on a time schedule here, so Larry, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Oh yeah. Start us off. What got you into Bigfoot, and what was your first Bigfoot encounter?
Well, my interest in Bigfoot goes actually clear back to the early 1970s. My dad took me downtown Mount Vernon to a movie theater down there, and there was a Bigfoot documentary. My dad worked for the county and had an interest in Bigfoot because in the 60s he had heard one. And so he took me down to see this movie when I was about 6 years old, and it scared me so bad I think I didn't sleep for about 2 months after that. But so that kind of sparked my interest. And then when I was 18 years old, on one of my many hiking trips into mountain lakes to fish and camp with my friends, that's pretty much what we did every weekend. We would go backpacking somewhere, and we had a real close encounter at a lake one night, and ever since then I've had a real heavy interest in the Sasquatch subject.
Well, yeah, living up here, anywhere you go in the North Cascades, almost. Of course, there's specific areas more than others, but I gotta say, we're in the heart of Bigfoot country, and Steve, our drone operator, drone specialist, was the one who saw the Bigfoot, I guess 3 days ago now, and he it kind of freaked him out because it's just something, you can talk about Bigfoot, you can look at pictures of Bigfoot. When you actually see one in the flesh, alive, and it looks at you, it's crouched down in the middle of the road, and it looks at you, and it bolts, and it runs. And it dawns on you, that's not a bear, because bears don't run on two legs. He was, in a sense, terrified, and to where he drove all the way back down the mountain because he was by himself. And he said he drove all the way back down the mountain with his dome light on because he was kind of freaked out. And as soon as he got home, he got a hold of me and he's like, "Eric, we gotta go back up there. We got to. Well, when are you available? Well, when can we go back up there?" And like, okay, tell you what, let's go back up Friday night. And we went up there. And I mean, you saw the track. Like we were talking before the show, it's hard to get, it's hard to do Bigfoot track pictures justice. Because when you're looking at it in the flesh, you can see the toes. If you're looking at a picture, it just, it doesn't do it justice. And we didn't have the time to get, a plaster cast or anything of that nature.
The track has to be very clear and distinct to come out real well in a photograph. And you have to have the right lighting too. It's almost like you need a couple $1,000s worth of camera equipment to really get a good shot of a track, unless it's right out in the open in the sunshine and it's very distinct and you can see the toes and everything.
Mm-hmm. And so we were talking, Steve and I, we get the sense that Bigfoot means no humans harm. not so much in the Pacific Northwest until you start talking the swamp ape in the South, and some of the Bigfoot cousins you find in other parts of the world. With the exception of when they throw rocks and logs, but I think that's more of a territorial thing. Well, what's your thoughts? Have you ever felt a sense of being threatened?
Yes, I have. The very first encounter I had when I was 18 up at a lake, kind of a lake tucked away back in the mountains by Lake McMurray. This thing we had in our campsite, it was threatening. Never harmed us, but the vocalizations that this thing was emitting for over a half an hour, it was on the other side of the lake just screaming at us, and then it started coming around the lake towards our campsite. About every minute or two, it would just let out another guttural howl that started from very low and kind of would reach a crescendo where it would be extremely high. It had an amazing vocal range, and it was really mad, and you could tell it wanted us out of there, and we weren't about ready to hike out of there in the dark, so we just sat in the tent, and we had a .22 rifle that we occasionally shot up, straight up into the trees to try to scare it away, which I don't think helped much. But other than that, I've never really had an encounter where I felt threatened.
Why do you think that encounter was different than your other ones? Do you have any thoughts on it?
What I think, and of course this is speculative, but we had something in our camp that kind of woke us all up out of a sound sleep about 1 o'clock in the morning. And we camped at this lake probably 30 or 40 times when we were in high school, and we never had a problem with bear or any kind of scavengers. So we were kind of sloppy about, hanging our food in the trees, putting our garbage away and that, we just got kind of sloppy at it. And I woke up in the middle of the night to something making these odd chattering noises near my tent, and it was going through my backpack. And I yelled, "Hey, if there's something," we were the only people camping at the lake. We were the only car at the trailhead. I yelled, "Hey, if there's something out there, you better say something. If there's somebody, because I've got a gun and I'm going to shoot." And about a minute went by, nothing. And then all of a sudden it just started letting out these really odd chattering vocalizations, kind of like a monkey. And a bunch of my backpacking gear went rolling down the hill past my tent. And what I think is I opened up my tent door, and just to see this big dark figure run through our campsite and down through this swamp. And I fired my .22 rifle up into the trees straight up a few times. And then shortly after that, about 5 minutes later, these big howls started coming from the other side of the lake. I like to think anyway that what happened was this one that we had in our camp was a young one. And it ran one way, and the adult that was looking for it was mad because it couldn't find its young one. Now, I could be completely off in that, but that could have possibly been what had happened. But the one that we had in our camp was pretty brave.
You mentioned young ones, and my question is going to lead to a question from one of our listeners. Have you ever seen the young Bigfoot? Have you ever seen him with kids?
No, I haven't. I've only had 2 visual sightings, and one of them was at the camp that night. The other one was up near Baker Lake when I was riding my mountain bike on a hunting trip early in the morning. And I saw one cross the road in front of me about 100 yards away. And I don't think it was a young one. I think it was an adult.
Okay, because the question comes from Joanna, and she wants to know if you think Bigfoot have their babies like humans do. I would have to speculate on that too. If they're mammalian like we are, they probably would.
I just have to go on what I've what I've read in other people's reports, and I would say that you're correct. I think that they have them the same way we do, and there's been a lot of eyewitness reports that kind of go in that direction. It's that's another thing that's really hard to say for certain, but I think that would make the most sense.
So, and like I asked you before the show, I was jumping the gun, but you've heard enough vocalizations. Have you ever put any of these vocalizations into a language that you think you could hear or understand?
No, their language is just it's so bizarre. You'd never make any words out of it. But it's also very human-like. It's just different enough to be very creepy, and whenever I've heard their vocalizations, I've always been with people who almost mentally break down. You never know how people are going to act when you're up in the mountains and you have an encounter or something happens. And yeah, a couple of the times when I've heard the vocalizations, especially up near Day Creek one time, we were riding our mountain bikes into Day Lake, and we heard some real good vocalizations down in the swamp on the south end of Day Lake. And that was my friend was having a hard time continuing into the lake to go fishing. He just wanted to turn around and get out of there. But as far as understanding anything they're saying, no. The two different times I've heard vocalizations real clear. One time had a lot of laughing, a lot of something was having a real good time. But when it was talking and chattering, it was very eerie. And that was the one we heard up near Day Lake. And now as far as howls, I've heard plenty of, the long drawn out howls like, they're famous for, but as far as the chattering and the actual talking to one another or trying to talk to us and intimidate us or whatever they were trying to do, I've only heard that twice.
Hey, so Joanna's got another question. So they're brave enough to go to a campsite and take things. Do you think they use our stuff? Oh,
for sure. I think they have to be so curious about our things. I'm sure they swipe stuff once in a while. There's been plenty of history and stories to back that up. They've got to just look at our stuff like, take off with it and look at it as
Walmart
and entertainment. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if they're brave enough.
And I'm going to add to that because I know a few Bigfooters out there too that they set up gifting sites, and it's kind of what we did.
Yeah.
I asked Anthony, our son, if he had a car that he was willing to give up. So I was going to take a car up to the site the other day and leave a car, because from past folks I've talked to, they like Matchbox cars, they like marbles, they love marshmallows. There's certain things that some people that leave gifting sites say they like more than others. So I left a Matchbox car up there, and we'll go back up there in a week or so, and it could be a traveler that went up there and picked it up, or it could be Bigfoot. And you usually know because they'll usually leave a rock, or they'll leave some kind of gift back for you. That's why it's called a gifting site.
Yeah, I've actually heard of a good friend of mine plays guitar, and he was out camping at one of our hot spots down off of Chinook Pass one time. Played his guitar for about an hour and got up and left, and came back the next day, and there was a pile of flowers sitting next to where he was playing his guitar.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So they like music.
Yeah, they do. And another thing I think they're attracted to is a very small campfire. Not a big roaring one, but we keep our campfires real small.
Okay, so Rick Kirby's got a question, but he I don't think you're in the chat room, so you can't see this picture. I'll send this picture to you on Facebook message so you can look at it, because he wants your analysis of this picture.
Okay. I'm sitting out in my motorhome, actually, out in my yard, so I don't keep my family up. So I'm not even in my house. I'm sitting out in a Toyota RV.
Gotcha. And I can't even. There's no picture. So it's about Cadbury Withdraws chocolates. Wrong article, Rick. So, Markham and I were up on a little haystack, and we heard what sounded like Markham could probably describe it better than I can. Kind of like a bump, bump, bump. Would you describe it that way, Markham?
Yeah, there was like a sharp thump. It was like, doof, 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 doof. There was an initial. It had a rhythm to it, and it had a descending volume to it, and it wasn't an echo, because each tone or each thump, you can tell. I mean, you can tell the difference between a live sound and echo. It was it was being made. There wasn't really an echo to it. So we were heading up past the gravel pit. We just past the gate, probably 20 feet past the gates when I heard it. It was almost like somebody was letting the local woods community know that, oh boy, the humans are nosing around.
It's almost like what it was too. I heard it as well.
Yeah, I think the kids were with us too. I don't know if they heard it or not. We weren't with the kids that time?
No. And I'm hearing some weird noises outside right now. It's almost like they know we're on the radio right now. But anyway, it might be my father-in-law's TV out in the trailer. But
might be your father-in-law.
It might be. But does that sound like a pattern that you've heard before at all, Larry?
They can make so many different noises. Of course, I've heard the wood knocks. I've heard the deep thumps. Sometimes I think they're trying to intimidate you, and sometimes I think they're just trying to play games. There's so many different reasons why they could be doing that, but just imagine the variety of noises that these things can make. I've heard, pretty much. I've spent a lot of time up in the foothills and the Cascades over the last 35 years, and I've pretty much heard, I think I've heard everything I'm going to hear, but then something new always comes up. But the thumps definitely, big deep thumps, like sometimes they'll wake me up out of a sound sleep if I'm sleeping in a tent. Where one time we were camping up at a lake up around Finney, and we heard something that it sounded literally like it was picking up a log the size of a Volkswagen Bug and throwing it down on the ground over and over and over again. And this went on for 15 minutes. And, of course it was 11 o'clock at night when it was too late to get up and pack up and get out of there. All we could do is just sit there and listen to it and hope that it didn't come any closer.
Right.
Well, I think we're missing a bet by not having the wood knock analyzed, because, more witnesses have heard wood knock than have heard vocalizations. And it would almost be if we could take the wood knock recordings and run them through a decode like the intelligence organizations use, where they have something for encryption decoding.
Well, binary code.
There could be we might find a language in the wood knock. I think there's more to it, just the way I heard it with the thumping and the way it had a rhythm to it. It didn't sound random. It sounded like a wilderness version of Morse code. Morse code's, a rhythmic if you think about it, you could do Morse code tapping on a rock. I'm thinking maybe their language has evolved as much in the wood knock or the expression of their language in wood knock as it would vocalizations.
Well, now Joe's talking too. Larry, now we've heard the wood knocks. Have you ever heard of a rock knock? Rocks knocking together.
Yes, I have. I've heard that too. I think anything that they can get a hold of that will make a loud crack, they'll use it for a tool. And again, who knows exactly why they're doing it when you're up there? But I've heard the rock knocks, boulder crashes, and like I said earlier, logs being thrown on the ground repeatedly. I think they just use whatever's at their disposal that'll make a lot of noise.
Now, what's your opinion about the knocks versus their language? Do you think there's a reason for it? Is that part of their language, or is that something completely different? And why do they do it? Why do they do it in response to? They've got to know it's human. They got to be laughing amongst each other. Oh, listen to them stupid humans are trying to mock us. But
sure.
Why do you think they knock in response to us? Is that just hey, we hear you. You're stupid, but we hear you. Or do you think it's warning others that there's humans around? Or what's your thoughts on that?
That's really hard to say. I've had them knock at me first before I've knocked. And you can tell if you spend enough time up in the mountains the difference between a woodpecker and something knocking on a tree. And
right.
I've had them. It may be a way for them to communicate, like, hey, I'm over here. Where are you? Because I think a lot of times they run and they hunt. They're not by themselves. There's plenty of proof of that out there where there's more than one in the party. So, but that doesn't mean that they're always within sight of each other. So, I think too it's to try to get a reaction out of us. But what's really fun and entertaining is when you have one knocking and you knock back and it knocks it echoes the same knock you just did. And that is, talking about an adrenaline rush. But why they do that rather than just turning around and screaming at you, I guess it's whether they're just playing games with you or they want you out of their out of their territory. And there's plenty of circumstances of both of those events happening regularly with people who have run-ins with the Sasquatch.
Well, it lends credence to me that they're a higher intelligent being than just a primate. I also personally believe that they can tell your intentions, and I think you and I have talked about that before too. Is that they can tell if you're hunting them, they can tell if you're a threat to them, and those are the ones that are throwing rocks at you and telling you to get the hell out of their area. If you're just there peacefully walking in the woods, or if you're looking for them, but you're seriously interested in them, I think those are the ones that are knocking back at you and entertaining you, essentially.
Yeah, I think, I agree with you. I think they do know your intentions because I find that when I'm just up in the woods and I'm either just riding my bike or I'm just out for a walk or I'm sitting there fishing or we're around the campfire just minding our own business, that's when things are going to happen. But when you're out with guys and, a couple of the guys might have firearms or, some of the guys are just that real type A personality where, like, I'm going to get out of my car and I'm going to find this thing, and that kind of those types of personalities usually don't have anything happen. Things have to be right for an encounter. It seems like the recipe has to be there. Of course, like your friend Steve, just the chance of driving down the road and seeing one like I did on my mountain bike when I was hunting, there's always a chance of that. But as far as, being up in the mountains and having an encounter where they come in and somehow make contact with you, I think, things have to be right for that to happen, or they're just going to sit back and watch you and you'll never know they're around.
So you're a big believer in Bigfoot chooses who is going to experience, you don't find Bigfoot, Bigfoot finds you, so to speak.
Yes. And one of the key factors to that I have found is to keep returning back to the same area over and over again. If you want to have something happen and you know that it has a history of activity, this certain place, just keep going back. And just be peaceful, no shooting guns off, just go up in the woods, be quiet, start a little fire, conversation's great, nothing obnoxious, that we usually call the witching hour between about midnight and 3. If nothing happens, occasionally something will happen later in the morning, but, midnight and 3 is usually the best time.
I've heard somebody down in Louisiana say that if you cook fish or, something aromatic on your campfire, that'll also attract them.
That could very well be. I so many of these mountain lakes that I hike into up here in the Cascades in Skagit County in the area, I release most of my fish just because I don't want that smell around my campsite at night after I go to sleep or try to go to sleep.
No, Joanna.
Bear, but for other creatures too.
Joanna wants to know: do you think Bigfoot are dangerous?
I do. I think they can be dangerous, and there's plenty of eyewitness encounters where they have been dangerous. But I think as a rule, no. But I don't count that factor out. They are dangerous, and you want to watch out when you're out there because you don't know. They're a wild animal, and they're very powerful, and you don't know what can happen. And we have all these reports of the David Pilates books, Missing 411, and we have all these reports of people up in the mountains just vanishing. And let's face it, we don't really know what's happening to these people. They find them little kids 3 miles away up on top of some mountain, dead. And the kid didn't hike up there, so something carried him up there. And this happens a lot across the country with hunters and people out by themselves or people who got separated from their crew. And who knows? That could very well be Bigfoot doing that. So I don't dismiss the dangerous factor at all.
I just want to add, though, to the flip side of that, you also hear the encounters where Bigfoot found lost kids and actually brought them back to the camp.
Sure. I've had multiple encounters, and I've only had one where I felt threatened. And
right.
But again, I've been charged by deer before. So, I've been up in the mountains and been charged by deer. So, any animal can turn on you.
Well, even thinking this is an animal that's so much bigger and so much stronger than we are, they could not intend to hurt us and, smack us into oblivion, just, not intending to.
Right.
It's like a full-grown, muscle-bound adult handling a baby, the difference between the two. And if they don't have a consciousness or a knowledge that, hey, we're more fragile than they are, a lot of those missing 411s might have just been accidental pats on the back that snapped a spine,
Sure. Yeah, there's the story, I don't know if you've ever read it, from 1924, Albert Ostman, who was hauled over several mountains through valleys and stuff, the one where, he had to give them their Copenhagen so he could he could run away, and then when they took and ate the Copenhagen or whatever kind of chewing tobacco he had, it made him all sick, and he was able to run out of their campsite. But they had picked him up. The Bigfoot picked him up in his sleeping bag and carried him over several mountains into their camp. And you can get a hold of John Green's book. I think it's On the Track of Sasquatch, and read that entire story. And I'm sure it's in other Bigfoot books as well, but that's the book I have that has the entire episode in it.
That sort of refutes the whole thing that the whole idea that Bigfoot was a media sensation created in the 50s. There's between the Native Americans and that the Osterman account, we're predating, Bluff Creek by at least 50 years.
Right.
So there was already a tradition of this creature long before it was ever a media thing.
And what was that famous? I'm drawing a blank here, but what was that famous video that Dave actually talked about on SOAR with the child Bigfoot in the corner of the rock? Who was that?
Patterson Gimlin. Patterson Gimlin.
There you go.
The Patterson Gimlin film.
What's your opinion? What's your opinion of the Gimlin video?
Oh, I think it's 100% authentic. I have no doubt. The thing that really sells me on it is the way that it walked. The way that it walked away from the locomotion of you watch its legs and you watch its knees. And I think it would be very hard for a man in an ape suit to walk as graceful as that thing was walking away. And they had dermal ridges in the footprints casting that they did, and I also want to say that I've met Bob Gimlin on a couple of occasions, and he is the most honest, sincere man. I have a real hard time believing that whole thing was fabricated, especially back in 1967 with the technology that they had then, and the entire story that I don't know if you've heard the whole story about what happened before the encounter, and then all of the just one setback after another of what happened to them shortly after the encounter. The whole story is remarkable.
Go into it, because we probably haven't since you actually met Mr. Gimlin.
Well, after they had the encounter and they went back to their cabin that they were staying in, they were planning on going back the next day and getting the plaster cast of the footprints. And the next morning they got ready to go back up there, and it was just a downpour, just pouring down rain. And I guess what had happened is they went in there, they got casts of the footprints, but on the way out it was raining so hard. And of course this is October, and you know how the mountains get in October when you get those first real hard rains.
Right.
The road literally almost washed out from underneath them when they were trying to get out of there with their truck. And the entire story, you'd have to there's a couple of different episodes of Coast to Coast AM where Bob Gimlin tells the whole story, and it's just fascinating. Just one bad incident after another that happened after they got those tracks. And I guess they were in there for about 2 weeks prior to their encounter, which was, I believe, October 20th, 1967. They had almost just given up and gotten ready to go home, and they just made one more trip back in there, and that's when it happened. But yeah, the entire story is just, I never get tired of reading it. It's just fascinating.
Well, and that's that video. You think back in the 1960s, that was a female Bigfoot. That Bigfoot had breasts.
Yeah.
And no one's who's going to put an ape costume on with breasts in the 1960s.
And you can also look at when it's walking away, the bottom of its feet are definitely padded. Like you can see detail on the bottom of its feet when it's lifting its feet up, and that's another thing about how it walked with its feet. If next time you watch the video, just watch its feet. It's so graceful. Again, you would have had to have a lot of practice in that suit to be able to pull that off. And the knee, the way its legs are moving, the way it's walking, just isn't a typical. It isn't Homo sapien. It just isn't the way that we walk or run. And then when it turned its head to look back at the camera, or look at Bob Gimlin, who was holding the 30-06 on it in case things went sour, it didn't just turn its head; it turned its whole body because it basically didn't have a neck. So there's just too many things that happen there that it would have just been it's too hard to fake, especially at that time.
Now you and I have talked before over the last few months when we first met on the phone, but your opinion, Bigfoot's not Giganteus pithecus. It's something else. Do you think it's a derivative of Homo sapien, or do you think it's other? What's your opinion on that?
That's really hard to say. As easy as it would be just to write it off as some unknown primate up in the mountains that's been smart enough to go undetected and not be discovered by just getting hit by a car or something. I think we're beyond that. So I think if it was just a matter of it being an unknown primate that has gone undetected all this time, I think one would have just eventually been hit by a car and gone through somebody's windshield, and too many people would have seen it for the men in black or whoever to come and haul the thing away, right? So, so what it actually is, that is the topic of a lot of argument and a lot of debate in the Bigfoot community, and I really don't fall into any of those parks. Any of the camps that say, well, it's related to UFOs. It's it's a descendant of Gigantopithecus blackie. What I think it is obviously this thing's ape-human-like combination, but I think there's more to it. And what there is, I don't have my mind made up, but I don't think it's as simple as it's just an undiscovered ape.
And we've talked about this before, but going by many different reports and many different witnesses, it seems to be able to cloak. Which you see Bigfoot 1 minute and he's gone the next. You can follow tracks through snow with no trees, and the tracks are gone. It leads me to believe interdimensional. What's your thoughts?
I'm open to that. I would like to think it's something a little bit more concrete, but the tracks just going and ending, that's pretty hard to write off. So it's hard to say. And if that was the case, then are they related to UFO activity? I'm sure you've probably read, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Washington State has the highest number of UFO sightings and the highest number of Bigfoot sightings in the lower 48 states, at least last time I read. So
that would be a Michael. That would be a Michael question, real quick. Michael sees all the reports. He's with Peter Davenport and New Fork, Going by all the reports, is UFOs and Bigfoots the highest state?
Well, exactly. I agree with Larry. The Olympic Peninsula on Washington State and Skagit County, of course, seem to be the real hot spots for Bigfoot. And I've talked with Peter Davenport about this many times on, the National UFO Reporting Center sightings. And he says that Skagit County is one of the hot spots for UFOs in the state as well. So this is a unique state in regarding to, we've got mountains, we've got ocean, we've got Puget Sound, and we've got the Olympics, and then we've got Eastern Washington, which is totally amazing, different, terrains in this one state. So, yeah, it's very, very possible that we are the top in both those fields here in Washington.
So is there a connection, Larry? I would say it's possible. I've heard the flip side. I've heard the flip side of that, though. I've heard. I've been on the UFO side for over 20 years, and I've heard cases where Bigfoot was seen coming out of a landed craft, picking up soil and water samples. And so I'm kind of torn on that. I've also heard the flip side where UFOs will come over the woods and Bigfoot will be running terrified. So, is there a connection? I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just anything I said would just be my own personal opinion, and that's as far as it would go. I think that there's definitely the fact that again we've got the most Bigfoot sightings and the most UFO sightings here, that, it's definitely something to consider. I've heard a lot crazier things with the Bigfoot, different fields that people are in than the UFO link. And I don't discount anybody and their ideas and opinions, because that's all any of us have at this point, right? Unless they get just too far-fetched for me to believe. I just try to listen and have an open mind and take everybody's idea and if I don't necessarily believe what they have to say, I'm not going to start an argument with them. I'm just going to say, well, that's interesting, and put it down in my notes and move on.
Right. You can only go by what you experience yourself, and listen to the experiencers that we deal with, and we either validate what they've experienced or it's an unknown. Now, what I like to find is some hair, because if we could find some hair of an actual Bigfoot sighting and get it to Markham for analysis, we can see what kind of DNA pops up, ideally. And if it's an unknown, then obviously we've got something. You get enough unknowns to, well, I don't know, you can explain that better than I can, Markham.
Well, unknown is going to be unknown. I don't care how many of them you get. We're going to have a reference. Right. You got to have a reference known to compare all the unknowns to, even if every unknown is exactly the same or with like a very little variation. Until we get that reference sample, that known, authenticated, verified reference sample, it's, best we can do is hypothesize that what we're getting is Bigfoot, but we can't be definitive.
And the thing is, up here, usually you're going to find hair about 6 foot level, and it's either going to be, if it's not Bigfoot, it's going to be a bear, which I don't know if too many 6 foot bears unless they were standing on their hind legs getting berries, or a horse because a horseback rider was riding through a trail. Anything that high, unless a bird, grabbed some hair off the ground and was making a nest, it's going to be Bigfoot, especially in these mountains.
What you have to be very careful of is...
Say again?
Well, one thing that's a good idea is, grab things like that hair and compare and find bird nests and compare the hair in the bird nest to the hair you're finding snagged on limbs, seeing if there's a connection. I said finding all this stuff is great, and it's a great mental exercise, but we still need that blood sample, that tissue sample, that one known verifiable specimen that we can compare all these other unknowns to. And when that happens, that's going to validate a lot of people's experiences. That's going to vindicate some of these people that claim that, yes, this is Bigfoot hair, and nobody believed them because there was no other comparison. But that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, the hair sample thing anymore has gotten to be about as bad as the YouTube videos, blurry videos with the cell phones, because so many of the hair samples that come in that might actually be valid Bigfoot hair samples are contaminated. So, the people just don't know how to collect a hair sample and keep it from getting contaminated so they can take it to a lab. And even then getting a lab to analyze it is like pulling teeth as well. So the whole process is, a lot easier said than done.
And we've got our own.
That won't necessarily be the case forever. We're working on getting that completely turned around.
Right, and we've got the evidence kit to collect that won't contaminate, and we've got Markham with the lab. It's a matter of getting the correct DNA analysis equipment as part of that lab. Now, once Markham moves up here to concrete, and we get a mobile lab and a lab set up for him, we'll have all the lab analysis equipment here.
Well, then you're a step ahead of the pack then.
We're working on it. FMP is one of the few that we actually have scientists on the team. We actually have therapists on the team. So, yeah, we're not here for a couple cool pictures and an EVP and, oh, wow, look at that. No, we're here to when it comes to the Bigfoot and the UFO side, we're here to find the answers. So what is your most unique experience? Because we're coming down to the top of the hour, and see if you're going to go the second hour with us, or so I got to ask you questions while I got you. What's your most unique experience you've got?
I've had so many encounters, but I think probably the most memorable experience was that first experience where the thing was in my pack and then ran off through the swamp, and then we got yelled at for a half an hour by this thing down in this lake. But since I've already kind of told that story, I'm going to tell the one, and the reason I'm going to tell this is because this happened right up where your friend Steve had his sighting. What was it, a couple days ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, we there's some very remote lakes up there that are about a 4 mile walk in, and the last mile and a half is pretty rough. It's pretty slow going. In fact, there's one spot where it's so bad that I'd probably never go up there again, because I don't know if I'm going to make it back out, because you're hanging on a cliff and your legs are dangling off. And anyway, we were up at this lake in 2005, and two other Bigfoot researchers and myself, and we were setting up our camp, and I noticed a couple small rocks flying in. This was in the fall in September. And I told my friends, I said, we're getting rocks thrown at us. And of course there were no other cars at the end of this road. The trail is barely a trail at all going in, and it's pretty rough country. And so we came back to our camp, and we were kind of, we were down at the lake getting water when I first noticed the rocks flying through the bushes. And then we walked back up to our camp, and we were kind of, getting ready to cook our dinner, and these rocks kept coming in. And what would happen is when we would all look up into the trees in the direction they were coming from, they would stop. And then when we would go back to cooking, and of course we were talking and say, okay, let's just act like we're ignoring it and just cook our dinner, and pretty soon smack, these rocks would hit these trees. And, they weren't big rocks like the size of tennis balls or anything. They were just, small rocks like the size of a, what do you call those little Super Ball things that you throw across your house that your cats chase, they were about that size. And they were just coming in from a couple different directions. And, then we'd stop again and look up to see if we could see anything, and they would just stop. A couple minutes later, they'd start up again. Well, this went on for a while, and finally I grabbed my gun and started walking up in the direction they were coming from, and nothing happened the rest of the night. And then in the morning, about 6:30 in the morning, they were coming in again before we even got out of our tents. You could hear them going through the trees, and one of them hit my tent. And then a big branch fell on my tent. And here's the thing about this branch is it was from a deciduous tree. It had leaves and everything on it. I think it was like from an alder or something, or cottonwood or something. There were none of those trees around our camp. So this thing must have grabbed something, brought it in closer, and threw it from up above onto my tent. And that really had me freaked out. And we just got up and packed up and got out of there. And that's just one encounter that I've had. I've had several. It would be hard for me to, I could sit here and tell you stories for an hour and a half, but that was one of our more interesting nights in the Cascades with the Bigfoot. I think they were just playing games with us.
Yeah, tossing rocks back and forth.
Yeah, and not trying to hit us. They were going over our heads. But, as soon as I showed some aggression and turned around and walked back up the hill, it all stopped, and they didn't play with us the rest of the night. What did happen is when I was coming back down the hill, I stepped in a hornet's nest, and they were flying. Here's a piece of advice for anybody up in the Cascades that's out looking for Bigfoot. Tuck your pant legs into your socks so they can't fly up your pant legs when you step in their nests. I learned that the hard way. and this happened to me. I came running down into the campsite. It was almost dark. I had hornets all over me. Those big black bald face hornets, and they were everywhere. And I couldn't see them because it was just dark enough where I couldn't get my clothes off fast enough because they were all over me.
Right.
Yeah. So tuck your pant legs into your socks. Wear heavy socks, and don't give them the opportunity to fly up your pant legs, because you will step in their nest if you're out beating the brush looking for evidence. You will eventually stumble into a hornet's nest.
All right, fellas, it is coming up to that time. Top of the hour.
All right.
So hold on to those questions. We come back from break, and we'll see where we're at here, and we'll continue on this. When we come back from break, we'll continue the discussion of Bigfoot and other cryptids. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, R. Keith Andrews, astrologist and alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, and special guest Larry Anderson from FMP's Bigfoot specialist. I've been doing it about 30 years, so great information tonight. Also myself, Corey Reese, and Eric Cooper of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And for you local listeners, you can catch our shows on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial on Saturdays from 10 p.m. to midnight. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Monday through Friday, Spaced Out Weekend with Joe Roop Saturdays, and Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com, starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or spacedoutradio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit spacedoutradio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
All right, welcome back, everyone. For those of you just joining us, tonight we are talking about Bigfoot and other cryptids. On our panel tonight, we have Eric Markham, R. Keith Andrews, Michael Hall, and we would like to thank our special guest, Larry Anderson, for being able to join us on first hour. He unfortunately couldn't join us on second hour because of a prior engagement tomorrow, but his 30 years of knowledge and being able to discuss Bigfoot was greatly appreciated, and we'd be glad to have him back at a future time to have more discussion and ask a few more questions. Other than that, I'd like to welcome everyone back, and let's continue on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you know, that's what I love about Larry. What's Larry doing tomorrow? Larry's getting up early so he can go out Bigfooting. That's what he does. Yeah, he's not mowing the lawn. He's not, he's Bigfooting. And, yeah, he does what he does his specialty. So I want to.
What's the weather supposed to be like tomorrow? Do you know?
Oh, it's downpouring. It's downpouring here.
Oh man!
I wouldn't guarantee it. It was supposed to downpour today, and it didn't exactly happen that way. It was pretty nice.
But it's been raining. It's been raining outside. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. So yeah, if we have any more questions in the chat room, by all means, ask them. But I want to carry on the conversation with aliens and Bigfoot. Because again, you know, and we could talk Goatman a little bit. Does anyone know anything about Goatman? Because we do have that case in, here in Skagit County. I'm not going to say names or locations, but in Skagit County, where a goat-like creature was seen looking in the windows. And there were 2 witnesses to that. But haven't heard anything more back from that client, so I don't know if she has any video footage for us on that one yet. But it was about 6 foot tall, had a goat's head, no horns. And it was in a very residential area, so I think there'd be more witnesses to that one. Does anyone know anything about the Goat Man?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to go on with that one, but the number one, you're looking at a critter that is and I'll use a critter loosely, that is a whole lot more intelligent than people think. As far as it not being seen, that's not surprising in the slightest. In spite of its size, you got to take a look at the time it was seen, as well as the fact that these things know how to move through the shadows, if you will, as in keeping to the shadows. I don't mean a mystical transference.
Mm-hmm. But I want to jump into outside the box, like we always are anyway, but I want to jump outside the box and speculate. Is there any alien race that you're aware of that appears like a goat?
Well, yeah, and they come straight out of Capricornus. And that's why I said they are a whole lot more intelligent than people think. They are very passive. Okay, very curious individuals, which is where, but they are, much as they're very curious, they are non-abducting. Okay. You're looking at a race that literally only wants to record, if you will, in the natural environment, not in the laboratory.
Hey, Keith.
Hey. Go ahead.
Yeah, could sightings of these creatures account for some of the mystical beings that were passed down in the Greek mythology, like Pan and, you know, the satyrs, these goat, you know, they were goat-like beings?
Well, as far as Pan goes, that's certainly not a goat-like. That's a satyr, and they are very much a real individual. That said, could this account for some of it? The answer is definitively yes. That's where a lot of these, because of the fact that mankind was more willing to, if you will, accept it without proof, they were a lot more free. You know, these entities were a lot freer to move around than they are now, because now everybody seems to want to capture them, cage them and test them. And for some reason, they don't take kindly to that thought.
No, I want to clarify, too. I have no reason whatsoever to think this particular case was alien. There's nothing other than a goat man. But if the alien race you're describing here is only curious, it would explain why he was just looking in the window and nothing more. What's curious also about this case, though, is she describes the clicking noise from the sounds of the movie Predator as being in the woods. And would that go with this particular race?
Only a little. My concern would be the other one that makes the clicking sound. And you're looking at two different races that don't exactly interact with each other. But the race that you're referring to that is depicted in the show Predator, although there are a few discrepancies to it, that's a real entity. And if that's in the neighborhood, I'd be looking to see which people are missing.
Yeah, right. Talking about missing people, we'll get to another situation that happened a couple of days ago too. A little bit later in the show, because I want to hit on Goatman a little more here. Because John has a question: is Goatman an alien or native to Earth? The Goatman creature, not the alien, but the Goatman himself. That people are describing. I don't even know when Goatman started, but is the creature Goatman of earthly origin? Do we know?
Well, I do know there is one, that there is and I keep forgetting what the term is, but there is an evolutionary strain that goes down the line of the mountain goat into a bipedal form. Now, are they of Earth? The answer is yes. But are they on the surface very much? No. These people have moved, for the most part, into the back end of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, if you ever saw their tracks, you wouldn't know it, because you would literally mistake them for a very large cloven hoof animal.
Well, like an elk or a deer.
Yeah. And because of the way they run, it would absolutely mimic the imprint.
And prior to me even hearing about Goatman, you said anything about a goat-like creature, and I automatically think being pagan of the Greek god Pan, because Pan had cloven hooves and a goat-like horns, human head, but no, I always thought of Pan.
And Pan is a satyr.
Right.
And
now,
that's, you're absolutely right. The satyrs do not have a goat head, although they do have horns. And if you're looking at it in the shadow from the right angle, you may assume that it's got a goat's head under the circumstances, because their jawline is a little extended.
And then you got Baphomet, which is a goat-like creature with some satanic or cult-like.
Yeah, but he is so much fun to play
cult.
with.
He is. We've got a person in our chat room out here on Facebook. Nicole says that there's also a Goatman sighting in Red Ash, Tennessee, which would also maybe account for those, living in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I believe someone said in the chat room earlier, isn't Tennessee where the first Goatman sighting was, or is that the one you're talking about?
Let's see here. She is talking.
Goes back into Kentucky.
Okay.
Ah. Yeah.
So the first sighting was in Kentucky. It could be the same creature. If it's territorial, Tennessee ain't that far. Well, it is, but territorial-wise, could be the same family strain.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Well, it makes sense that you see a lot of these sightings in more mountainous type areas. I mean, goats. Most of your goats originally are more of a mountainous type animal, so.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is, it was once estimated by somebody I know that in order to have a viable population, understanding it would have to span out over a fair distance, but to have a viable non-interbred population, you would have to be looking at a community of 200 plus. Otherwise, you'd have too much inbreeding, and they burn themselves out.
Right. Now,
consider the goats are known; they'll stand on their hind legs and look around to see. It's not uncommon for them to stand on their hind legs. And if you're not used to that behavior, you're out in the woods and this wild goat standing on its hind legs. The human mind could, put that image together.
Oh yeah.
And some of the goat breeds, some of the meat goats get very large as well. Not to mention, like Joe said, the French Alpines goats. They do stand on their hind legs to get leaves and to eat, leaves off trees, but they don't walk.
Heck, even the Rocky Mountain mountain goat.
Right.
Even that thing can grow to the 6 foot mark without any problem at all if it's standing up. And oddly enough, it's really kind of weird to watch, but oddly enough, I've seen the actual mountain goat hop along on 2 feet, trying to get at something that was just out of reach. But I mean, it looks really weird, and I knew it was an actual mountain goat. It's not like it was odd from that standpoint, but it does look funnier than heck when you watch this thing go up the hill that way.
I can imagine. When we had goats, we had them stand on their hind legs all the time, though, to get to the apple tree branches and the cherry trees and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we are going back up to Mount Higgins, July 16th to 18th. Markham will be here, so we are doing an expedition for any of our local listeners that are wanting to join the team. It is going to be a training mission in the heart of Bigfoot country. And actually right in the area where we actually heard the knocks. So I'm looking forward to that one. And for any listeners that are in the group, I posted 3 different videos that I took when we were up in that area. And there is an unknown installation or facility across the mountain range from where this Bigfoot was. So I'm going to bring up, could Bigfoot be a government creation? I'm going to say no, but I want to hear everyone else's thoughts. I'm going to say no because you go back to the Native American lore of Hairy Man, and Bigfoot goes back before the government was creating things, to my knowledge.
Well,
but what do you guys think of that?
Well, playing devil's advocate, considering you said could it be, technically the answer would be yes. However, do I feel it is not a prayer, not a functional prayer anyway.
Right. With Coop. I mean, we've got the early Spanish explorers who wrote in their logs, because keep in mind, these people had to keep an supposedly honest journal of their travels. And these journals were considered truth. I mean, yeah, because there was no other way to verify things. And they had encounters with these huge, hairy, man-like creatures. Now, conventional critics will say, oh, they're just describing a grizzly bear. Well, that's crap. They knew what grizzly bears were.
Or a gorilla.
They knew the difference. Yeah, and, well, there's no, yeah, that, now, of course, now the gorilla was considered a myth until Western scientists, so-called discovered them. The natives already knew they were there. But, this thing, this thing predates, I mean, we're talking Neolithic era. They've found cave paintings and artifacts that, point toward the hairy man, the Bigfoot, existing even then.
Well, let's face it. If they're talking about an encounter, if you're trying to chalk it up to a run-in with a grizzly bear, I don't know about you guys, but I do not see that interaction as an encounter. I mean, technically it is, but you're not having a conversation.
No.
Right.
But I mean, they wrote in their records about this, these creatures, and they had to fight them. That it wasn't, but they weren't describing a bear.
No.
No.
Well, and, they would have known what that. What I'm saying is the modern people say, well, they're just describing. They didn't know what a bear was. Well, that's crap. They knew what the bear was because they had performing bears in Spain. It was a they knew, they would have known a bear from, granted they thought they were part of the dog family. The genus, it was Canis horribilis was the scientific name, but I mean that's that's beside the point. They were describing something entirely different than a grizzly bear.
And,
this large bipedal mammal was not being misidentified as a bear.
No.
Now, Joe's got a question. Are there ever sightings of Bigfoot near the local dumps scavenging? Not to my knowledge. Has anyone else?
Wouldn't be a surprise.
I've heard about it in. There's a report, an eyewitness account in Arkansas. No, not Arkansas. Where's Fort Leonard? Missouri. Supposedly.
Okay,
There was supposedly an eyewitness account where, they saw, some Sasquatches rummaging around through a dump site. But that's the only one I remember ever hearing.
But think about it. I mean, that'd be Walmart. I mean, oh my God! If Bigfoot is intelligent enough to enjoy our can opener and open our cans and play with our toys and whatnot, that'd be Walmart. You go to the landfill.
Why we don't. Is it just hunters don't think to look there? Because they do. Joe, you just made me think of something. Down in Florida, the skunk ape sightings. Many of the skunk ape sightings are around dumpsters. Now, perhaps the reason we don't have as many reports in the Pacific Northwest is, it's not as heavily populated, and maybe there's not as many dumps. But
there's the other added bonus up in the Northwest is you got way more bears that go near the dumps than you do down there.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
and that may well be the shall we say deterring factor.
The Bigfoot doesn't want to fight with the bears, or they just respect each other's territory somehow.
Something to that.
Well, and that's my other curiosity is I wonder if there's territory fights between bears and Bigfoot, because when we were driving up the mountain the other day, we saw a bear not too far from where he saw the Bigfoot. Bears can't run 45 miles an hour on their hind legs.
Not a prayer.
So he knows it was a Bigfoot. But we saw a bear probably, I would say probably about 5 miles before. the location he saw the Bigfoot. But I wonder how they interact. I mean, there's so many questions.
They don't interact badly. Aside from, like, bears are a little more tolerant of Bigfoot, and I'm referring to female bears with cubs are a little more tolerant of Bigfoot than they are of humans, because Bigfoot knows how to cope with them to let them know that, no, they're not coming after the cubs.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would think that would also be the animalistic nature of the Bigfoot versus humans. And why the bears would interact more.
Yeah, because
they're
closer in mentality, or closer in personality might be a better word for it.
Now, if we can get, what's that microphone I need to get? A
shotgun mic.
Parabolic. Now, if we get a parabolic microphone and we are actually able to get recordings of the knockings, and like you were saying, Markham, if we can figure out a binary code to translate wood knockings or even rock knockings, if there's a pattern to them and we can figure out the language.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if we started analyzing and figure out these damn things were tapping out hexadecimal code or some advanced computer code? I always wonder, though, you hear the wood knock, and it seems to be a communication, but you never hear these, or nobody's ever recorded them doing a primitive music.
No. And I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was fascinating how Larry was talking about the guy that was playing the guitar, and they left him a bunch of gifts.
Yeah, they obviously have an idea of what music is, but nobody ever captures. You would think they would either do some kind of, knocking, hollow log. I mean, look at the basic percussion instruments in the woods.
They're like drums.
Thumping on a hollow log. Yeah, thumping on a hollow log. Some kind of vocalization. They seem to appreciate music. They appreciate music, but they don't produce any. Or they don't seem to produce any.
Leave it to Forest Moving Paranormal to come up with a band involving humans and Bigfoot. You bring up twisted. You bring up your guitar. You play your guitar at our expedition here in July, and we have Bigfoot playing the drums. There you go. We record it.
And it becomes a bestseller.
It would. I've got a question for Michael, though.
Yeah.
What do you think? And I've got my own theories, but what is the draw with Skagit County with Bigfoot and UFOs? Is it because a lot of it's mountain and it's primitive, easier to hide? Is it the fact that we have gold mines, we have silver mines, we have radiation, natural radiation in the soil? I could go on. But what do you think is the draw, and why do we have more sightings of these than any other state?
Well, you might hit on something that was interesting when you said the minerals up there in the mountains, because from what I remember in our expeditions up there with the UFO I-Team, we have heard from the forest rangers and the indigenous folks that there were a lot of gold mines, copper mines, and those kinds of things in that area.
Well, there's even silver up there.
Okay, well then that means that there's precious metals there that might have something to do with why potentially the UFOs are there, whether they're mining things or using it for energy. And then, of course, if the UFOs find it interesting, maybe the Bigfoot likes, the vibrations of that area.
Well,
I mean, there's one thing I was thinking about when Markham was mentioning about the parabolic microphone, in recording any of the wood knocks or sounds. It would be interesting to see if we could record high pitch tones that would not necessarily be within the human range, but
ultrasonic.
Could hear it. Yeah, there you go. Those kinds of things.
Or subsonic.
Well, now one of the things you just triggered a memory of something I read. In North Carolina, we have a legend of a Bigfoot-like creature called Budgum. Anyway, this creature was known to dig around and collect gems, because North Carolina is a very mineral-rich state. We've got rubies and emeralds and all kind of stuff here, and this creature was known to, that's what he ran at. He would be caught many times in mines or in an area where there was a rich vein of emeralds or rubies or aquamarine. We got just about anything you can think of here. So it might be the same behavior there. This might be some kind of crude currency they use, or they just, like humans, they just like them.
I do know with the UFOs, the low-level radiation that is picked up in the area would certainly, or more to the point, does certainly draw the UFOs, because they use the radiation bleed-off to actually charge some of the batteries, depending on which race you're looking at.
Yeah, well, when we went to Darrington for Markham's birthday, we were actually picking up radiation trace with the what were we using? I'm just not thinking tonight. Yeah, we had the Geiger counter.
Hannah had that one.
Yeah, we were picking up small traces with a Geiger counter. Now, we had the Geiger counter working in conjunction with the EMF. Two different frequencies, because the Geiger counter picks up straight radiation versus EMF. And, what was interesting is they were both spiking at the same time. So, and the whole, there's a whole lot of speculation. We'll find out a lot more answers when we go in July. But, in answer to some questions in the chat room, yeah, we do have thermal capability with Steve's drone. And for folks that don't know who Steve is our drone operator. And it is the high range drone. He can take it out 5 miles. And I believe it's the 10,000 foot level. Or something like you don't quote me on it. But we do have FLIR capability. So we couldn't fly it a couple of days ago because of the rain. If it's raining, he can't put it up. That was curious because about 30 minutes before he had his Bigfoot sighting, he was flying the drone. And he packed the drone up. He started driving back down and around the corner, and there was Bigfoot crouched in the middle of the road. So we have a theory that potentially Bigfoot was curious about the buzzing noise of the drone. But he wasn't looking up. He was crouched down in the middle of the road. Bear in mind, Steve's got a Camaro, so it's quiet, which we figure is why he was able to sneak up on him. But, and I believe that's happened a couple of different times with the drone, is that the noise of the drone seems to make him curious. Is it potentially because of the vibration of it?
Yep. It's the subharmonics that are set off that'll trigger will trigger the curiosity. And the other part of that is they'll put their palm on the ground to get a better sensation of the subharmonics in order to track what the heck it is.
Because, he gets a lot of anomalies when he's got the drone up.
Something that most people don't realize is you can actually communicate with the trees, as in put your hand on the root, like for the trees that they just pop out of the surface, out of the ground a little. You can actually get a staggering amount of information from the trees if you know how to listen to them. And rest assured, Bigfoot knows how to listen to them.
Oh, yeah, I think Bigfoot's in tune with them.
Yeah.
That's really why I believe firmly that Bigfoot's the guardian of the earth, and if you're causing environmental damage, Bigfoot's going to know if you're the one causing damage. I do think Bigfoot knows intention.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The
reason they don't get agitated with the drones is because the drones aren't doing any damage.
No. But they are logging up in that area.
Yep.
So it makes me wonder, because we have such a high level of Bigfoot and UFO combination, if the UFOs anger Bigfoot.
Some of them. The reality is, if you take a look at the UFOs that are just dropping in, taking samples and leaving, in other words, they're not doing any functional damage, then there isn't a big problem. Okay. But when you get the ones that are coming in, totally disrupting the area, i.e. the ones that are sticking around a little longer, those ones will upset Bigfoot because those ones cause a disturbance in the area, throwing the balance off.
So what about the aliens living in the mountains?
Well, that's the nice part, is the ones living there are part of the environment at this point. And providing they're not doing anything to damage the area, Bigfoot's not going to worry about them too much. They'll keep an eye on them, but you are right. Bigfoot is one of the... They have taken on the mantle of guardian for the, for the natural areas.
Now, that leads to another curiosity. Do you think any of these abducting aliens have taken Bigfoot?
Absolutely.
So, much like humans hating aliens that are abducting humans, would make you, if I was Bigfoot, I'd be a little ticked off that, there's an alien creature taking Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
Which would lead...
You want to watch something that's a mess, you should see when they don't actually immobilize the Bigfoot completely before they go to pick him up. This does not work out well.
God. Yeah, it's bad enough when Bigfoot attacks a human, let alone an alien.
Picture Bigfoot versus Gray. Be kind of like Bambi versus Godzilla.
What comes to mind is the Hulk going smash and hitting him with his fist, and
yeah, pretty much. Or playing by hanging onto his arm. I mean,
Right.
You never run across a mutilated Bigfoot either. That's kind of
No, it is.
I keep looking at that always from the standpoint that for centuries nobody could figure out where the elephants went when they died because nobody ever saw a dead one. It wasn't until centuries after they first came across elephants that they started finding elephant graveyards.
I think it's amazing that they discovered that elephants recognize the bones of their dead.
Yeah.
They'll come across bones of a deceased herd member and pick up the bone and pass them around. It's almost like they come by purposely, and it's a funerary rite.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, it's very much because elephants are extremely extremely social animals amongst themselves.
Well, and they actually have funeral processions when one of their own dies.
Yeah.
That's been documented.
Which is fascinating to watch. You know, this is why I look at it when people talk about, when the uneducated go, oh, it's just a dumb animal. I'm like, you really got to learn to listen to the animals before you start jumping on that idea.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm thinking, I got so much going through my head because I'm telling you, a couple of days ago when we went up on the mountain, it just, like I said, that's an area that even the locals don't like to go to. It's just, I don't get creeped out. And so I really wasn't creeped out. I was fascinated because it is a fascinating area. Between the minerals that are there, between just the energy that's there. And it was, I guess, awe-inspiring was more the word because, you know, seeing the Bigfoot tracks was, oh, cool. I've actually seen them for myself now. You know, I've heard the Bigfoot, I've heard the knocks. I've heard the wood knocks. I've never seen a Bigfoot track firsthand, and that was really cool. Then we spent about half an hour looking for hair, and we couldn't find any hair. I wonder if they shed their hair, though.
Not the way a dog does. They shed their hair more along the lines of the way a horse or a goat does. So, yeah, it'll shed, but it comes off in such small quantities, finding it is almost impossible.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm curious if they take Anthony's car.
If they take Anthony's car, no, they only, you gotta watch the commercials. They only take the campers that have kokanee beer.
No. The Matchbox car I left for the gifting site.
Sorry about that. Wrong direction. No, that will be fascinating to find out.
Yeah, and to see what they put in its place, because I mean, even if they don't, I really don't care. Now I've got a mission for Michael. You know, looking at Paul Idy's work, he's got cluster maps everywhere. We've got a lot of missing people here, but I have yet to see any cluster maps for this region. Now, I'm going to go on a limb because I don't know if it's an active case yet or not. No one's been reported missing as far as the area we were in, but we found a pile of clothes that were stacked up neatly.
Really?
Well, we can safely say that wasn't from Bigfoot.
No. That was right in line with Paul Idy's. They were a little bit muddy, but they were expensive. It's not like somebody, you know, why would they take their clothes off? You're talking 4,000 foot level where there's snow. And we also found a Swisher Sweet cigar still in the wrapper.
Well,
we found a lighter.
There is one possibility if you're up above the snow line. And that is that some people, when they, and this is what I found this out from my dad when he used to run search and rescue, but some people up in the snow line, if they start suffering from hypothermia, they have been known to do really stupid things like get undressed and leave everything behind and walk off, at which point, guess what happens? Mm-hmm. But that is actually a side effect of extreme hypothermia.
Well, and there was a first aid kit that was opened. We didn't actually find the kit itself. We found like the first aid manual. Like they'd opened up a first aid kit and gone through it, and it was kind of scattered. I did hit 911. I did talk to the county that picked up the 911 call, they said it wasn't their territory. It was actually Skagit County, so they transferred me over to Skagit County Sheriff. And no one's reported missing. So, I mean, I've got the pictures of the clothes. It's been documented. I know the deputy that took the call, and he knows where I'm at. So if anything comes up, I could take them back up to the site, and they can get a cadaver dog up there. But, again, how can we track missing people based on Paulides' work if it's not reported?
Well, sadly, that one I can't give you an answer to because I don't know on Paulides' work.
Yeah, he's got the missing 401. What's your thoughts, though, Michael?
Well, you know, I've looked at David Paulides' cluster maps, and you know, for Bigfoot sightings, or actually his cluster maps are for missing people. They seem to correspond to mountainous areas, as far as I can see. There are some in Florida and southeast and southwest that aren't in the mountainous areas, but you don't find any clusters, as far as I can see, of missing people in the plain states, in the middle part of the country. So I'm just wondering if these missing people only are missing in mountainous, forested state parks and those kinds of things for a reason. And one of the reasons that people have mentioned theory is that these federal and state lands are restricted. Of course, you know, there's no drone capability in those areas. By the way, there is admonition about using drones in federal parks or state parks, and of course they are federally controlled land. Who knows if that is the green lighted area for UFOs coming and going, and or abducting people? I don't know.
And that would certainly make sense.
Well, how much of this is also you get somebody who watches Bear Grylls or, you know, one of these Les Stroud and think, oh, I can do that. And some city moron gets out there, gets lost, and becomes bear poop. How many of those missing people are, you know, death by misadventure?
There's probably several that are that way. But, you know, you think about something, too. You ask the question, why would it mostly be in the mountains? Well, if you think about it, you get into the flatland states, and I do mean flat when you think of states like Kansas and such. You can see as far as the eye can see. How are you going to hide something if you're trying to make somebody disappear? You can't. Everybody can see everything. So it would make, if you think of it just on a logical sense, it would make more sense to do it at a place where there's a lot of mountains, a lot of trees, and people can't see things real easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there was
one thing to also consider that there's no such thing as wasted resources when you have an ecosystem like that. You've got the heavy rains in the Pacific Northwest. You've got the high density of wild animals. If a person, you know, dies in the woods, they're going to disappear pretty quick just from predation, the rain washing away the remains, and just that moist environment would help the remains rot faster.
Well, I believe somebody did a study on that and determined that out in that environment, you're looking at from the time a body drops to the disappearance of it is only 5 days. You know, between the decay and the animals taking it and running off, 5 days there's not a mark left. You know, just something to consider on that end.
Now, Trips asking, did you leave water supplies, whistle, and directions to get out? No, we did not, because it was actually a very well marked road. So if they were there, we were there long enough that we would have found them. And it's just, people don't fold their clothes up and leave them alongside the road. They just don't. It didn't feel right. We were discussing, could it be cult? It could be a cult activity. It could be, it could be a myriad of things. Is anything going to come out of it? Probably not.
No, but at least
it
you
didn't
can
feel
rest
right.
easy yourself knowing you reported it.
Right, and that's exactly what the deputy says. We did the right thing because, is anything going to come out of it? Probably not, but it's documented now. But it leads me back to, these kind of cases, people just disappear and nobody reports them for whatever reason. Because, like you tell everybody, you go in the mountains, you tell everyone where you're going, when you're coming back, so they know where to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. And, that's one of the points, that's why we do wilderness training as a paranormal team, because you watch them on TV, and they're wearing khaki shorts, they got a bottle of water, and they're not prepared for jack. Because they got a TV crew behind them and with probably a paramedic. But, Bill and Ted over here watching TV are going, that looks cool, let's go up there and look for some Bigfoot. They don't know the first thing about the mountains. And if you know the mountains up here, it can be sunny and hot one minute, and here comes a thunderstorm and snow the next.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You get somebody that thinks just because they watched a couple outdoor adventure shows, they're now, Kit Carson or something. They're going to get out there and get lost real easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and most of them haven't got a clue what they're doing as far as that goes.
But then again, you've got the David Paulides thing that there are very expert and well-prepared folks that go missing all the time in state and national forests, and it is just totally strange that these folks who have always been prepared or have been in these woods, many times themselves before, have just all of a sudden disappear. And like you said, there are some stories that he would tell of their clothing being found folded up and in a neat pile.
They found that. It seems to me they found that with the Franklin expedition. They got iced in. The Franklin expedition, for people who don't know, it was they were trying to find the Northwest Passage through the Arctic Sea. They got frozen in, which was common. They had their supplies, but they started doing crazy crap like traipsing off. They were trying to make it to a whaling station 1,000 miles to the east, and they did it nearly naked, or it just, when they found the bodies, it was they were obviously deranged. They were lugging things along like a chest, like a hutch cupboard or something. They weren't taking things that made sense. And they were finding articles of clothing left behind. And like it was mentioned earlier, part of hypothermia, as you start to freeze to death, people, feel like they're burning up, and they'll pull their clothes off.
Yeah.
So are we getting people to get out in the mountains, one of those quick weather turnaround things comes around, and they're just rational enough to fold their clothes up thinking, I'll come back for these when I'm not so hot, when in reality they're freezing to death.
And that is
right.
a high probability in my eyes. Because we know for a virtual certainty, well, I know for a certainty, but anyway, Bigfoot does not fold the clothes of missing people.
No. And to be honest, to be honest, is Bigfoot taking them? I don't think so. That's just my opinion. With Paulides missing people, I think it's a plethora of different events going on. I think some of it's government. I think some of it's alien. I think some of it's wormholes. And these are only the mysterious disappearances, not the ones that disappear, that were hiking, not the ones that can be explained is why they disappeared, animal mutilations, things of that nature. Right. I'm talking about the ones where the clothes were folded. I'm talking about the ones where they're in a party of people and they're talking to someone 1 minute and gone the next. Yep. Where did they go? They didn't go over a cliff. An animal didn't take them because.
Well, what if in those cases where the person just sort of seems to wink out of existence, what has happened is, they talk about multiple timelines. What if all of a sudden there's an adjustment in timelines and that person's existence no longer happens? That the timeline corrects itself and that person just disappears?
Not quite. Because the thing is, the past doesn't. You can't go back to the past, but on that venue, there are floating wormholes, floating pocket wormholes that could pull you sideways into another universe, if you will, or into another time, decades or even centuries in the future, where you'd cease to exist here and all of a sudden show up a century later, but of course the people here aren't going to know about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is essentially the same idea. The only difference is we're not dealing with a timeline per se correcting, but it would certainly play havoc with modern tracking.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And on that note, we have exactly 4 minutes before we got less than that. We have like 2 minutes before we have to start wrapping up or go to close. And I got to say, we've had some fast shows before, but oh my God, this show went quick.
Yeah, this one did.
I can't wait for July. I can't wait for Markham to come up and actually have his some major Bigfoot interaction and experiences, and definitely bring your guitar because we got to play some guitar for Bigfoot and see what happens.
Oranges up.
Somebody's going to have to provide one because I'm going to be flying this time, and I doubt if I'm going to be able to have one.
Well, you left one here, remember?
Yeah, that was a gift to somebody else, though. I'm not going to grab that. Probably couldn't get it out of our hands anyway.
I'm pretty sure Faith would have no problem with you playing guitar for Bigfoot.
I may have my new Kiesel by then. I've got one ordered that they're building, a little headless model that would be perfect for that kind of thing.
Just a suggestion, but since you're going up there trying to be nice to them, take fresh oranges with you.
Something aromatic and sweet. Okay.
Yep.
Other than myself.
Sounds good.
Well, we're just going to leave that one to the imagination,
okay? Oh, okay, folks. And on that note, thank you for listening. Been a great show. If you're new to the show and you haven't heard of Forest Moon Paranormal, make sure you look for Forest Moon Paranormal in Facebook. Jump into the group. All of our updates are always in there. And as always, been a great show. And go ahead and take us home, Corey.
I can do that. All right, I would like to thank our panel, Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, our Keith Andrews, astrologist and alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, and I'd like to thank our special guest of first hour, FMP's Bigfoot specialist, doing the job for about 30 years, Larry Anderson. Thank him very much for coming on and giving us his knowledge. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we have our monthly round table, where we all bring 3 questions to the table and sit there and discuss it for your entertainment pleasure. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And for local listeners, KSVU 90.1 on Saturdays at 10 p.m. till midnight. I would like to thank our listeners, because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.
America, you can finally get the Jack in the Box fries you love, sauced and loaded. Introducing my $3 sauced and loaded fries, smothered in guacamole and cheddar cheese, and loaded with your choice of tender carne asada, savory chorizo, or chipotle chicken. So go ahead, get sauced and loaded out late with your friends, or the night before an exam, or even after a terrible date. Yep, there's never a bad time to get sauced and loaded. Well, unless you don't have a napkin. You could stain your shirt. Try my $3 sauced and loaded fries today. New at Jack in the Box. Limited time only. Price of participation may vary.